2 days before this attempted mutiny, the Ministry of Defense announced that all formations that perform combat missions must sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense, and everyone began to implement this decision, an absolutely correct decision. Everyone except Prigozhin. Then he was informed that in this case, Wagner will not take part in the special military operation. That is, no financing, no material resources will be allocated. And for Mr. Prigozhin, this is the main, if not the main thing. And the following has transpired. The first is money. The second is stupid and exorbitant ambitions. And the third is an agitated state. All of this has added up to an attempt at high treason and the deception of his comrades in arms.
Alexander Crowther is a senior fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis. He joins me now from Miami, Florida. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We've just had the head of the Duma Defense Committee, Andrei Kartapolov, declaring that the Wagner Group will no longer fight in Ukraine as its leader did not sign a contract with the Kremlin. What do we know about this contract? What effect would it have on the Wagner Group, and why did Yevgeny Prigozhin refuse to sign it?
So the reason that the Ministry of Defense wants to do a contract is to get everybody under control, all the forces. You can't have multiple forces answering to different commanders operating in the same theater. It's confusing, it's difficult, and so this is a very rational move on the part of the Ministry of Defense to try to get Wagner and the other paramilitary groups under their control. But Prigozhin, that would steal his power. And one of his main power centers is the fact that he's the head of Wagner. And so he didn't want to do that. The big thing is going to be when the Russian forces that have invaded Ukraine and are on the defensive right now lose 20, 30,000 battle-hardened soldiers. This is going to make it even harder for them to defend.
Right, so mainly a control issue. And I do want to ask you a question on geopolitics, because given the possibility at this point that numerous members of the Wagner Group will now be moving to Belarus, what are the risks that this may pose to neighboring countries and their geopolitical relationships with Belarus?
Well, I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem for Latvia or Poland because they're members of NATO. And so anybody that does an incursion across a border into a NATO member is looking for a lot of trouble. The Poles are very, very well prepared, and they're right up on the border to defend themselves. I just got back from Latvia. I've worked with the Balts for years, and they're all ready as well. We know that the Germans just agreed to build their battalion in Lithuania to a brigade, an extra 4,000 people. So everybody's getting ready for that. I don't think that Wagner would do something for Belarus. So I think that Wagner, the remains of Wagner that go to Belarus, there's an outside chance that they would conduct an operation into Ukraine. But as we saw over a year ago, operations from Belarus into Ukraine just don't work that well. The terrain doesn't support it.
Right. And quickly, what do these recent developments mean for the war in Ukraine at this point and the recent Ukrainian counteroffensive? I mean, are we expecting Russian military to get redeployed to cover the gaps left by the Wagner Group, in your opinion?
Yes, absolutely. They're going to have to thin out their lines. They're going to have to use some of the forces that they have in reserve, bring them up to replace the Wagner fighters that were on the front line. It's also going to have a negative impact on the morale of Russian soldiers on the ground in Ukraine. Disruption at home, this whole Wagner mutiny thing, which is where Prigozhin was trying to advertise, good czar, bad minister. Won't you please get rid of the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Defense Staff so we can actually win? And so these are all going to sap the morale of an already demoralized Russian military on the ground in Ukraine. So I think actually we're going to see more surrendering by individuals, things like that, and just less motivated defensive forces.
So we'll keep a close eye on that. Alexander Crowther, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.